Once upon a time, you were supersizing your business. You were a princess, of course, or the queen or the king of your industry. And a Yeti came along in the form of the competition and tried to destroy what you were building. But your fairy godmother appeared on the scene and everything turned out in your favor. You supersized your business and lived happily ever after. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, in our idiom today, not an awesome story to start out, is once upon a time. We're focusing on story in this year's annual challenge as part of the SOAP framework, as we're finding an area of our life that we want to improve. And so I picked once upon a time as our idiom. Once upon a time has been used to begin the narrative, often for children's fairy tales, since the 1380s. And it really kicked into high gear in the 1600s as works of Charles Perrault, Hans Christian Andersen, the Brothers Grimm, etc., were translated into English. And the way they began their stories was in their language, basically saying once upon a time, which also means a long, long time ago. Now, fairy tales often begin with once upon a time because people like stories where they can predict the ending and the outcome. A lot of times when we're telling our story about our business and about our challenges that we faced along the way as we're building and growing and supersizing your business, if you've never faced a challenge as you're building your business, please contact me because I want to know what you're doing differently than the rest of us. But it's easier to begin a story in a way that predicts that there's going to be a happy ending, that things are going to turn out the way we want them to. Guess what? We get to write our own story. We get to create the story that we want as we're building and growing and supersizing our business. Are things going to happen that we definitely don't want to happen? Yes, but it's how we overcome them. It's how we beat that Yeti or that dragon or the competition, and not beat, but how we continue to move forward despite whatever craziness happens as we're on our journey. So I was looking up some different ways, and I guess my question today is, how do you tell the story of your business? What is your business's story? Why does it exist? Why should people care? Because if you're not telling them that, they don't know, or they're making something up themselves, and it's usually not what we necessarily intend or what we want them to make up. It's why people spend so much time and energy on branding and marketing and messaging and events and things to get people to know about them and their organization and their company. So you can begin stories in different ways. It doesn't have to be once upon a time. And often, once upon a time isn't necessarily appropriate for our stories about our business. Now, it depends on the story you're telling. If you're sharing a past experience that turned out well, maybe once upon a time is a great way to start it. You know, once upon a time, I was a naive woman who trusted everyone, da, 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 da. And I'd share a couple of stories about how I, kicked myself in the foot by not listening to my gut or my intuition or doing my research, and I got burned. So we can begin stories by saying, or beginning with action or an action dialogue. We can begin stories by asking a question. If you notice, I ask a lot of questions in my titles and in when I'm talking online and when I'm sharing things. We can begin with background information. I think I often use that. I guess I use all of these. 4, we can describe the setting. We can talk about what it's like in our business, or what it's like to do business with us, what your customer experience is like, what you could expect. We can begin a story by having the main character introduce themselves. There's a lot of talk and there's a lot of emphasis on personal branding with marketing these days, as well as having an attractive character that represents your business. This may or may not be a real live person. It might be you. It might not be you. It depends what your customers can most relate to, because we're in business to serve our customers, right? If you're not serving customers, why are we in business? If we're not helping people get their needs and problem solve, their needs met, etc., why are we in business? So love to know your experience with once upon a time. Have you ever written a story or told a story beginning, except for reading to your kids, right? Or your grandkids. I read to my grandkids all the time, and a lot of their stories and fairy tales start with once upon a time. A lot of them don't now, but back when I was a kid and when my kids were kids, many of them did. So love to know your take on this particular idiom. Have you used it? Will you use it? Can you think of a way that you could use it and improve your storytelling to grow and build and supersize your business? That's it. Have an awesome day, and I will, of course, be with you tomorrow.